Welcome, everyone, to episode 310 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pentalaresco. I write stuff in Podcast 2. Today, Susan Forrest returns to the podcast. Burst of Fire is officially out, not just as a book, but an audiobook as well. Definitely check it out, courtesy of Laxa Media. Here's the thing. I've been in Vancouver 3 days, and I've been here officially 1 week. This is week 2. So the first week, I worked my shift. I just got acclimated. This week's kind of when things will slowly start to balance out. I find that when you're moving, you're adjusting. There's some really cool things. Like for me, one thing, my favorite things about Vancouver, honestly, it's how old school it feels in a lot of places. It doesn't just feel like a laundry. Like the laundromat. A laundromat. Like I haven't seen since I was a kid. I'm like, this is cool. There's a lot of corn up laundromats. There's definitely an interesting culture here. I've been enjoying it a lot. But yeah, it's been kind of a slow process in some ways. Other ways, I've just started. I made vows to change, and I've been slowly changing. I'm moving away from my comfort zone. I'm trying to make the magic happen, and I had my first job interview, which is like, hey, hooray. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily want a day job forever. That's not really the point, but the point is I can look at myself honestly and say, hey, I got things I need to work on, and so let's go find jobs where I can work on those things. And just do something completely different, something brand new, something that you can expand your horizons at. Anyway, let's get to our conversation with Susan, shall we?
Think you have what it takes? Get your ass to Mars. Gaia Tim is a simulation game in which you arrive on Mars ahead of the colonists about to settle into this new home. Until they arrive, you have to survive, facing limited resources and a brand new world filled with unexpected challenges. Can you establish what the colonists need to survive? Or will Mars get the better of you? Gaia Tim, the Dragon Edition, launches this November, courtesy of Indie Imprint on Steam and Windows. Check out indieimprint.com for more information.
Okay, so the recorder is on, so we're now getting to the really incriminating stuff. So that's where I'm at. Like, I'm at the point where, again, I'm fine here.
Yeah.
But I'm not where I want to be.
Right.
And I'm just ready to make some changes and evolve. And that's kind of where I'm at. So, August When Worlds Collide is kind of my unofficial, I do want to launch a book here before I go. So I have a book the book that I read at IFA way back in the day.
Oh, right.
It's all polished and shiny and it's ready to go.
Yeah. So
I'm going to launch it. I'm hoping in October. I have to meet with the guy that's doing the covers and stuff like that, and I'm seeing when he can get it done by, so I can go to Owl's Nest and go, what days are you free in October? In November. Now, if it's November, fine. I come back to Calgary for like a day or two. My flights, I get flights really cheap, so it's not a big deal for me.
Right.
I come back in, I do a book launch, and then I officially go. And I'm sure I'll have business in Calgary from time to time because it's not like I haven't established myself here.
Yeah. But you have lots of connections here.
Yeah, I do. I do. And like I said, I may be foolish to ignore that, but I also have lots of connections in BC. I have lots of connections.
Came around to help you yet?
Oh, sorry.
My name's Addison.
Sorry, don't need you. No, it's okay. All right, bye.
Wine Wednesday today.
See, you had already hatched your escape plan, right?
No, I was going to get my husband to check my passwords at home so that I could get onto Facebook.
Yeah. Computers aren't your thing, are they?
Sorry?
Computers aren't your thing, are they?
I'm working on it.
You're working on it? You want, so one day I'll come.
So I've got email, and I was able to get connected, and I got Twitter, but I don't have a Facebook app, so I had to go in through the web, and then they wanted a password, and I don't remember. I don't know how many passwords I've got. I think hundreds of passwords, I think.
Well for me, I limit it to 3. I know exactly what the 3 are.
Yeah.
They're personal ones, so not ones people are going to actually get, right?
Yeah.
Well, unless you maybe know me really, really well, but not too many people do. So it's like, if you're hacking me with this, you're either really good at a hacker or you're someone I know. And depending on what you're going through, I'll know which is which on that one.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to is like, it's just the age of the times. Like it's just one of those where like we all have to learn and grow and adapt. So in your case,
yes, exactly.
So in your case, so I guess social media is the thing you're growing and learning and adapting to at this point.
Oh yeah, I've been doing tons of that. Lucas and I, you know Lucas, right? The book comes out in 3 weeks, so we're just about to, throw everything out to everybody to have a look at.
Yeah.
Got a couple of blogs that are coming out. I'm going to be doing Mary Robinette Kowal's My Favorite Things. I got one coming out with Lawrence Schoen. I got a couple coming out through some, what do you call them, like Twitter blog post things. Yeah.
Twitter blog post things. I like
Bookstagram.
Bookstagram.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram's fun.
Yeah.
I goof off on Instagram. Like I take random pictures of things that amuse me, or lately the only thing I worry about with what I'm doing with the podcast is I feel like I'm worried that I'm too commercial. No one wants to see you buy my stuff, or here's a giveaway
right.
courtesy of this. But it's a weird thing because you have to promote. There's that really balance of you have to promote versus like you're fake. Like and there's because no one wants to see posts every few days on end. Hey, listen, this is out. Buy.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. No, it just turns people off.
Well, yeah, you get that all the time. Right?
Yeah.
You go outside, you get, hey, please buy this or please buy that. Right? And I'm like, no, I don't want to buy this. My money just leaves on its own accord. I'll buy itself anyway. Like this week, I'm paying my editor off with the book we talked about. I'm just really done, right? So. It's one of those things where it's like, well, my money is already spoken for this week. I don't need to buy anymore.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're still doing all kinds of the traveling, from what I gather.
Yeah. Last week, my husband and I went out on the motorcycle with a couple of friends, and we went all around through southern BC. We got some lovely twisty roads. It was a lot of fun. Good weather for most of it. One day was pretty rainy, so we only went for like a couple of hours, and we found a hotel.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it was nice. Well, actually, I had my iPad with me, so I was able to do some editing.
So writing, editing. So. So how long are you tending your trips? Like when you do when it's the weather's good, how long are you on the bike?
Probably not like around here, not more than about 10 days. But. You know that we did a 3.5-month motorcycle trip through Europe a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Last time you were on the podcast, you were mentioning that.
Yeah, so fingers crossed in another year or so, we'd like to do Eastern Europe.
So how far, so you did all of Western Europe? How far is Western Europe? Like how? Oh,
well, the place is so big.
Yeah.
Like, you think, oh, well, I'm going to see all these countries.
No.
And no, you don't.
No, so what did you see?
Oh, well, we started in England, went down through northern France and saw some of the World War I, World War II sites, got down to Lascaux d'Eu. Have you heard of Lascaux?
I've heard of it,
yeah. So that's the cave paintings. Lascaux d'Eu is where they allow tourists to go, and it is an exact replica of an original cave. It's got all the paintings and everything, so that was amazing. And then down through Corsica, which has amazing roads, my goodness. All the way as far as Malta.
Nice.
Yes, that was a real highlight. My husband wanted to see some World War II sites there.
That is...
museum.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one that he wanted to see was under renovation. But they said, well, have you seen the war rooms? And no, we didn't even know about the war rooms. So we went all the way down through these tunnels.
Yep.
Have you been there?
Not exactly. My grandmother was born during World War II.
Okay.
During World War II, she was born during World War II. Well, actually, she was just at the start. She was born in 1939.
Yeah.
So she spent the first 4 years of her life, because Malta was always, if you look at historically speaking, Malta's always been a spot where people have come to conquer. The reason being is because it has access to everywhere, right? So World War II was no more during World War I, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, Crusades, you name it. Malta has been invaded by everybody.
Yeah.
So my family's Maltese, and so yeah, so I like Malta is in one sense the true minority of the planet, because literally because we've been conquered by everybody, right? Almost every kind of bloodline goes there because everybody's been there, right? So we're in World War II. My grandmother would remember this for the first 4 years of her life. All she heard was bombs, because they would again. It was always under siege, because whoever controlled Malta could attack Africa. Who controlled Malta could attack Southern Europe, right? And so that until the war was over, she didn't really see much daylight. So she remembers this very vividly even now. Like, she's in her 80s, right?
Yeah.
So because it was such a big, it's such an unusual thing. But these caves, like, they all went into these caves and they protected them. That was their lives. Like, they go in, they do the caves, they get whatever food they could get. And survive. Like they deal with the bombings. It was just a regular occurrence there.
This war room that we saw was really amazing, because it was 2 stories high, and on the main floor it had a great big map of the area with all the grid marks and the little markings and everything. And then up on one side there was a balcony with one chair.
Yeah.
And on the opposite side, there were these louvers where the people behind would put information and then flip the louvers over so that the person in this chair could look down on the map and look up at the louver. It was straight out of Dr. Strangelove.
Yes.
Like, it was
absolutely.
so weird. But it was.
But that was
cool.
how it was how they communicated. Because again, you didn't have the luxury of, like, even if World War were to happen today. I mean, who's to say what networks would still be up and running? You'd be going back to these older school methods, and they were using a lot of latitude, longitude, coordinate kind of stuff, and Morse code was the big thing then as well. And there's lots of little tricks. Like I said, so my grandmother, like I said, for her, that was normal until she was 5.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was their norm. So I don't know, I've never gone into full detail with the ward room, but again, what you're describing is pretty much where she lived for about 4 years.
Yeah. It was we were only there for like 3 days, but it was beautiful.
Yeah, so Valletta? Did you go to Valletta?
Yep.
Yeah, Valletta's a very beautiful city.
So we got off the ferry. It was really hard to get there.
Yes.
But so that was a bit frustrating. But we did finally get there, and we got off the ferry at 9 o'clock at night. So it was dark, because this was in the spring, and it was raining, and we were on cobbles, and we're on the left side of the road on a motorcycle. That was exciting.
Yes. Did you go swimming there?
Did not have time to do that.
Ah, okay. I won't traumatize you with some of the things I know about that too.
Oh, really? Why, they got terrible tides, or?
No, that actually beautiful place to swim, but that's also where the white sharks breed.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's where they breed. They breed in those waters. So what they used to do, I don't know if they do this anymore, but they used to do way back when my dad was going to Malta, they would actually dynamite the water.
Yeah.
So if they knew the sharks were prominent, if they have a shark out there, they blow it up. That way people would be,
Oh, really?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's what they did. Now, I don't know if they do that anymore.
Yeah.
But that's what they did. And so, I mean, no, you just, like, you can swim and yeah, that's where, again, beautiful seas. There's lots of cool, like, places to dive there. But it's also
and they've got some caves too.
Yeah.
We didn't get to the caves.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like there are some really cool places, but that's the flip side. Like, nature has this wonderful balance of it. Like, the beautiful things also tend to try to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, that's the beautiful things tend to try to kill you. So, and that's no different. Like, way back, and again, today it's probably a lot more civilized from what I've been told. So, but it's one of the situations where, like, it's somewhere I've always kind of wanted to go. But again, my grandmother's from there, my dad's been there. I'd like to go once, just kind of see it. But like I said, we'll see what fate goes in the cards as far as that goes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have other things I'm doing right now, but I mean, down the road, I'm certainly traveling more as I get older. So I find it's becoming, just what we do. We have to move around all the time.
Yeah.
So you got any cool bookstores out there?
Bookstores in Malta?
No, bookstores just in Europe. Period.
No, I did pick up one book. I went to a bookstore and I picked up one book. It was about Peenemund. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's where the Germans were developing the V1 and V2 rockets in World War II.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the book was written in French, and I read some French, but my kids went through French immersion, so I figured I could get some help. But it had tons of photographs as well. Because I've got a different book that's not part of this series that I'm working on. That's a World War II thriller, and I was thinking of doing something with the V1 and V2 rockets.
Yeah.
But I've kind of changed my focus on that, and I'm going to be working more with the. I want to say Dunkirk, but that's the wrong one. The one where the 5,000 Canadian soldiers attacked in 1942.
Versailles? No, not Versailles. I know what you're talking
I went
about.
there.
Yeah. Oh, the place we can't name right now,
Yeah,
ladies and
that
gentlemen.
place.
Yes. Well, I'm just saying because you travel so much, you have a very interesting opportunity if you really wanted to. I don't know, I'm sure there's some headaches that come with this, but you can get contacts with a lot of these bookstores, and you can also launch like for you, it'd be like the idea. I think the ideal, you could launch books in other countries while you're traveling and doing your deal. Now
That's true.
Right. It's just something. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, you're there anyway. If you can do what you're enjoying, and
Yep.
yeah,
I knew it would come to me.
okay, Dieppe, ladies and gentlemen, we figured it out. But but again, if you're doing what you love to do, and you can also maybe put a little business in on the side and expand your base there. I mean, you never know, right? One thing I've learned doing this is you never know where one thing leads to another leads to another. You just do things and things happen.
That's true.
Yeah. So, it's my random thought of the day for you.
Yeah.
So, how's the first book doing, I should say?
Well, it launches in 3 weeks, so we're pretty excited about that. But it's got a bunch of good reviews. It's a, what do they call it? Publisher's Lunch Buzz Book. Publishers Weekly recommended it.
That's awesome.
Book List and Library Journal.
So you definitely got some big names behind you.
Yeah. And it's got some good reviews on Goodreads.
So you're doing any public launches? Like When Words Collide, I'm assuming?
There's a bunch. So When Words Collide is our first official launch, although we're not doing it in a traditional way. You know, so many times launches are, a reading, say, and a lot of people are not coming out to readings. So we wanted to make it more interesting. So we've got a series of 4 so far videos that are going to go out on YouTube.
Yeah, okay.
So we're actually doing a panel at When Words Collide on the making of videos.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So there's 2 series of videos. One is about artists, and the other ones are more action adventure.
Are you ready?
So they're 1 minute long, and so what Laxa Media did was they got a woman, her name is Sora. She is a songwriter and singer, and Lucas had her commissioned her to write an original piece of music to go with the book. And so it's got 3 verses. So the first 2 of the videos use verse 1. One of the videos uses verse 2, and then the third video uses the third verse. So the one video is about young princes that are in the story. Another one is about girls that are being chased by some dogs. Another one is about an artist who is inspired to create art based on reading the book.
Just call me whenever you're ready.
Yeah, right. Will do.
So that's really exciting, and so we're going to have a panel that describes the process of putting these videos together.
Did you direct any of them?
Oh yeah, I mean, we're doing this on a shoestring.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh
yeah, but I still think even if it wasn't, you'd still want to direct them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I was really fortunate. I used to do community theater a number of years ago, and I still have a bunch of connections. So I connected with a woman that I know who still does a ton of this stuff. And I said, do you know any teenage boys that are good actors that would come out and do this? And so she helped me to put the cast together. I know some people that are into costuming, so we got costumes.
Yeah.
And then I talked to a friend of mine. Her name is Shanaz Nanchi, and she was nominated for a Governor General's Award for Young Adult a couple of years ago. And she has the most beautiful house you have ever seen. It's got kind of an East Indian flavor.
Okay, it's a little exotic, yeah.
It's a little exotic. She's got this wonderful balcony out the front. And she said, yes, you can come and use my house. So we took over her house for a day with all these people in costume. And we had two cameramen. So we would set up a scene, we'd have the actors act it out, and we'd have, the close-up shots from two different angles, and the wider angle shots and what have you. And then the huge part of it is the editing, is putting it all together. So I'm lucky my daughter, Amy Totten, she's an amateur, but she's really good at putting together videos. And so we're sitting there and going back and forth and getting the moment to land just on the notes of the music. Right?
Yeah.
So it's been really a lot of fun, and I'm really impressed with how these videos have turned out. So when we do the launch, we're going to showing these videos.
Are they on YouTube already or
not yet? I think so. I've just sent them to Lucas to have a look at. He gave a little bit of critique, and interestingly, he didn't have a critique about the body of any of the videos. He had a critique about how the credits show. So we've got a little bit of fixing up to do before they're ready to go. And then, so I think the first place we'll be showing them is at that session.
Okay. All right.
And then they're going to be released on a schedule over the next few months.
Make sure to link to Goodreads when you do it, just
right.
Because it's just a natural fit for what you're doing.
Yeah.
The hardest thing a lot of authors tend to forget, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody, is self-promotion. You have to remember to highlight your stuff each and every time. And
well, do you ever listen to a podcast on CBC Radio by Terry O'Reilly? It's called Under the Influence.
I've heard of it. I have not listened to it.
It's really awesome. This guy is so entertaining, and he just tells stories, but it's all on advertising. And one of the things he says about advertising, he says advertising is kind of like a grasping, a greedy kind of a thing. It's a take thing. Give me your money, like we were just talking.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And so he says what you should do then is you need to give back. You need to be entertaining, or you need to have humor, or you need to have something that's a gift.
Well, I always equate it to kind of like, for me, it's pro wrestling, like back in pro wrestling, because back in in the 80s you had these over the top characters that would be interviewed by me and Gene Okerlund, and they would be like over the top crazy. I mean, but there's a lot to learn from that, because yes, it's the most absurd thing you'll ever see, but the one thing the really good ones had was they had conviction in what they were selling, which was themselves, right? And they were entertaining. Like, they were very entertaining. They engaged the audience. And we live in an age today now where we don't have the luxury anymore of releasing a book, having like a bunch of buffers to promote the book. The buffers are gone. You have to promote it yourself.
Yes.
So you have to learn how to be out there and be comfortable in your own skin. And like I said, I speak from experience interviewing people for the podcast. That's something a lot of authors struggle with. And it's, on one hand, it's sad because I know the author cares, because if they didn't care, they would never written the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But it's getting into that habit of it's okay to acknowledge that you're proud of this, and that you're good at this, and that I believe in this. Like, and I think the real trick with advertising is it's not about like necessarily going on the approach of buy my book. I think you can just say, I believe this is good, in your own way. I believe this is good, and it's worth your time.
Well, so that's kind of the idea that we're taking, is it's being put out there like a gift. So the action adventure ones, well, actually even the artist ones, tell a story.
Yeah.
Right? And it is amazing the equipment that you can get these days. Like, even though I know iPhones have amazing phones, or amazing cameras, we actually used a proper DSL camera for the filming.
Night and day.
Right?
It's night and day.
Yeah. And again, we've got professional editing software to do this so that, the effects can be added and the transitions and all of this sort of stuff. So that's why they're looking really good. But the idea is that we give this gift, that we provide a story with something that people might be actually interested in. And then it's just at the end we say, and here's the book.
Yeah.
So it tweaks, it asks a question, it puts out a bit of adventure, right?
Does it leave it with like a bit of a cliffhanger, each and every one of them?
I try to make a complete story in the sense that it's only these are 1 minute long videos, right?
So it's almost like a flash story, like a flash fiction.
Yeah, it's like a flash fiction.
Yeah.
So it's a complete story in its piece, but it's also reflecting the larger book. And so, people say, if I'm interested in this, maybe, and there's the information on the book at the end, right?
Which is totally, again, that's where you should put it, is at the end. At the end of the presentation, right? It sounds like you guys got a plan, and I wish you the best of luck on that.
Oh, thank you. I'm pretty excited about the videos.
I would be too. I mean, it sounds like you put a lot of work into it. Yeah. So, I mean, I would be very, very excited. So, I remember us talking at the Auroras because
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember, and we were both talking because we were both talking about how we both wanted to be known for our writing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like life, and again, although I'm very okay with the fact that, again, as a podcaster, I'm more known for that than my writing, and I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah, but that's a starting point.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. But this year, you're actually nominated for your writing too.
I am. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Actually, it's my 4th Aurora nomination.
Yes.
Haven't won yet, but fingers crossed. But it's for a short story that came out in Intergalactic Medicine Show. It's called For a Rich Man to Enter, and it's a story that's set on Mercury. And I had a lot of fun doing the research. I actually got in touch with an astrophysicist from the University of Calgary and had him look over it. And one of the things about writing is the more restrictions you put on your writing, the more creative you can be.
I find that's actually true in creativity in general. Actually, it's true in creativity in general. I have a buddy, like the artist for the Cloud Diver. Mm-hmm. This is what I found with him. You give him a blank canvas, he's frozen.
Right.
He freezes. He'd be like, I can do anything I want. Oh my God, what do I want?
Right.
But if you tell him, I want this, and this, but it can't be this, and this, he's got it. He'll get done in like an hour and it's brilliant. Right.
So I was thinking that, so if I've got colonists on Mercury, which is a horrible place to live in any case.
Yeah, usually.
Right. What would they be doing there? Well, maybe they would be mining heavy metals, or maybe,
Yeah.
And I talked to this astrophysicist and he said, number 1, no heavy metals on Mercury. Number 2, even if there were, the cost of dragging them up the gravity well to Earth would make it prohibitive.
Yes.
So you put these restrictions on, you think, okay, so why on earth are people even on Mercury to begin with, right? And so it allowed me all these opportunities to be really creative about it.
Penal?
No.
Okay,
no.
That was my thought there.
Earth is at 14 billion, and that is one of the key things about the difference between Mercury, but it's like 3,000 people, right? Mars has been colonized, the asteroids have been colonized. Like, Mercury is well down the list for any sort of colonization.
Well, it's like the last place you'd want to go.
That's the last place you'd want to go. That's right.
That's why that was like the penal thing came to my head. It's like, yeah.
No, what they've got, because they're in such a difficult place, is they've got intellectual property because they had to be creative. Haha.
That works.
But in actual fact, the story is more specifically about the valuing of human life. That on Mercury, everybody is cross-trained in a number of different professions because everybody needs everybody. If somebody gets hurt or sick, they have to be cared for. On Earth, it's, you can't do the job, don't worry, that guy can. So when Mercury and Earth have a war of a revolutionary war to separate, the prisoners of war that the Mercurians take from Earth are rehabilitated and trained and become part of the colony. The ones that Earth takes, like they forget they got them. But they put them off someplace and they can't even find them, right? So who is going to try to leave Earth a few years later when conditions on Earth get so horrible? 14 billion people on the planet. It's the 1%ers who have the resources to actually leave. Right? They come to Mercury as refugees, and they've got these prisoners, dying prisoners of war, that they're saying, here, we'll give you back your friends and relatives, and why don't you take us in as refugees?
That's a Bible quote. That's what you based it on.
Yep.
It's easier for it to go through the eye of a needle than to get into heaven, and before we're trying to get into heaven. And the reason that's told is because it's the whole trade the whole world, lose your soul kind of thing.
And there are some biblical references. For instance, the Mercurians think of themselves as living beneath hell.
Oh no. Well, that's again looking at that whole whole concept of Mercury. It's like it's pretty. Sun's right there.
Yes.
It would feel like hell. Even at the best of times, it would feel like hell, right?
Yeah.
Right, in the worst of times. But I mean, it's one of those situations where, historically speaking, human beings, given adversity, you figure out who you are in those moments,
That's
and that's right.
Well, and doing the research again, talking to this guy, the university professor, whose name I've forgotten. I should credit him, but anyway, he was saying, if you're going to have a space station, which is where the Mercurians and the Earthlings meet for this negotiation, it's not going to be in orbit around Mercury.
No.
It's going to be in orbit around the sun, but coordinated with Mercury's orbit, so it's always in the shadow of the radiation.
Yeah.
It is little things like that is so interesting.
Oh yeah, no, there's lots of given limitations, you can come up with some very creative solutions to problems.
Yeah.
One of my favorite uses of Mercury, one particular science fiction story was they turned Mercury into a giant solar battery. So it was because it solves the biggest problem. Like civilizations are founded completely on our power sources.
Yes.
Right? The more power we have, the more we can do. Our power source today is oil, but let's say you could harness the sun somehow, some way. Well, right? So you turn Mercury into a battery and you ship the energy to Earth, and suddenly you have a pretty potent power source, right? One of the stories in the next novel I'm working on is actually the whole idea of using stars as power sources, and actually it's about restoring them, right? And
I think you mentioned something to me about that.
Yeah, they actually do it under the guise of a race.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're restoring the power sources so the empire can continue.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's again, if I go under again, for me the foundation I give myself is every culture, doesn't matter what it is, they all were founded on the basis of whatever their power sources were.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. That's why slave labor was such a big thing for thousands of years until oil, because that was the biggest source of getting access to power to do stuff. Right now we're going to oil, but oil is coming to its limits right now, and so what's going to happen next is either we're going to find another power source, or we're going to go back to an older source.
Interesting.
Right. That's usually that is again. I'm just going by history on that one. Right. So that's what's going to happen. Well, the ultimate, the dream power source, if you're looking at it from a science fiction point of view, is the sun, because it's not going to expire anytime soon, right?
Not soon, no.
No. So for me, that was where I went, and I came up with this idea. It's like, you know what? We probably have excessive waste on the sun too, because if you have that much power, you waste it. That's just how it works, right? And but maybe that culture would be smart enough to figure out a way to restore it. And I came up with an idea how to restore a sun.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah, but again, creativity. You give yourself adversity, and you give yourself a little adversity. You give yourself limitations. For me, it was power. How would power work in the future? And suddenly, you create a whole world just based on that whole concept.
Yeah.
Right. And right. But you what the hell am I going to do with Mercury?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why? And like I said, there's all kinds, and every creative endeavor. It doesn't matter if it's a podcast, whether it's a video, whether it's a novel. You create limitations, and you do that on purpose because, again, you need adversity. Like, everybody needs a little adversity in their lives in some form or fashion, whether it's the biggest one for most of us is poverty, or what our resources, what we can acclimate. But I mean, there are other ones as well, and as long as you give yourself a little bit of discomfort, you'll always grow. It's when you stop being comfortable, stop letting yourself be right. That's when you stop growing. That's when you stop evolving, and that's when you have no adversity anymore. And when you have no adversity anymore, right? And that's
you're absolutely right.
Learned that one the hard way a long time ago. So, but that's just the way it goes. So, Burst of Fire is the book. Yeah. So, excited?
Oh, yes.
Excited.
Yes. Well, it's book 1 of the 7-book series.
Yes. The last time we talked, that's actually what you said. Yeah.
So book 1 is called Bursts of Fire because it's the nonfiction subject matter is addictions. I think I told you about that. So book 1 is focusing in on first tastes, on the excitement of newness, of coming to new situations and
the possibilities.
Book 2 is looking at the idea of codependence and enabling. So
interesting.
In addictions, right? And then book 3 is looking at the social underpinnings, like the effects of colonization and how certain groups then become more vulnerable to addictions. So each book deals with addictions from a different perspective.
Is there a personal reason why you chose addiction?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any family anywhere that hasn't been affected by addictions somewhere. So definitely in my own family, there's alcoholism, and well, the other thing too that I worry about is the other thing that runs in my family is ADHD. And ADHD has a lot of overlap with a number of different conditions, but thrill seeking and along with that substance use and substance abuse, there's a high overlap, I guess. And so, with my kids having ADHD, one of the things that I've said to them is, make sure you're being temperate in some of these areas. You don't. I've seen enough people go down that path, right?
So I'm going to come at this on a different tack, if it's okay. So I somehow this is the impression I get of you, and this is the impression I get. I imagine your kids just based on talking with you.
Yeah.
You like challenges.
Oh, sure.
Right. You like. See, I've known a few thrill seekers in my life, and it's not. And I think I do have a little bit of this in me, although not to. Again, I'm not to maybe the degree of other people, but I love the feeling of fear, and I love the feeling of fear for one very
roller coasters.
Right, that's part of it, but no, I love the feeling of fear for one really, really cool reason. When you're in that moment of fear, you're alive in a way that there are very few other circumstances in your life where you're that aware of everything. You feel everything quite in that moment. And I get the feeling, right? If there is an addiction that maybe you suffer from, is that particular feeling. And the thing is, this is why I think this is my theory on why thrill seekers seek drugs. They're looking for that extended, it's an adrenaline. It's an adrenaline rush, right? Right? You're looking for that next rush, that next high. You go to drugs not because you necessarily want to go to drugs, but because you don't know where else to go. You jump off that cliff. You race as far as you can. You push yourself to those extremes in as many ways as you possibly can. But once you do all those things, then what? Right? And see, and so the impression I would I guess I would argue, I don't know if it's necessarily the ADHD that's the link. I think it's more and this is just an opinion and nothing more, right? I think it's that desire to achieve that maximum sensation of being alive. That if I were to make a guess about you, that's you thriving. And I'm going to imagine your kids have a similar thrive. So maybe the advice you should give your kids is the advice I would give you. Seek a purpose. Because if you seek a purpose, you can funnel that in a more constructive way. That doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, once in a while, you're going to go probably down a path one way or the other. It's just it's part of life. You're going to explore. You're going to seek things out. That's human nature. But if you have a purpose, something you're going for, something you're driven to achieve, right? It might be easier to be temperate because saying you're temperate's great, but why should I be, right? But if I have a reason or a purpose or a concept that I'm striving towards, it's easier to pull back. Yes.
You want more diet?
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I read a wonderful book once about ADHD. Obviously, with it in my family, I'm always trying to educate myself. And it was called Hunter in a Farmer's World.
Yes.
And the idea behind this book is that ADHD is not a disability. It's a genetic adaptation to a world that we don't live in.
That's an interesting thought.
So the idea being that if you're a hunter and you're chasing a deer, like you have intense focus on that highly stimulating activity. The deer disappears and a rabbit shows up. You can switch, right? Whereas a farmer has to put a seed in the ground and wait and wait and wait.
Yeah.
So it talks a lot about the strengths of people with ADHD as having a lot of really good intense focus and ability to take risks. So for instance, they make great entrepreneurs.
Yes.
They tend to be very creative people, right? But the problem that an entrepreneur has if they're ADHD is that they really do well to be in a partnership with a farmer. So they've got the drive, they've got the energy, they've got the risk-taking ability to set up a new business, but they need a farmer partner who will remember to pay the bills at the end of the month, right?
Sometimes I think there's an argument, but I just think it's about finding the right balance. I think today more than anything else, and going back to the word adversity, it's about you have to seek it today. Whereas before, Whereas before, adversity was a very commonplace thing. You had to have it was there all the time. You had to, but you had to do it. Or else you weren't going to eat. You weren't going to do this. Like bad things. We don't have that problem to the same degree today. Don't get me wrong. Not everybody's in that boat.
Well, I think we have threats. It's just that they tend to be such global things that it's very difficult for individuals to feel the possibility of any sort of empowerment in dealing with them. So that it becomes like this big cloud of anxiety, like climate change, for instance. Individuals can stop driving their cars. Yeah, that's great. But you don't feel like you're really having an impact when millions of other people are still driving their cars.
Yeah, but, okay, so I think I see. So when I faced adversity, like some of the points in my life where I faced adversity, where there were weeks I'd have $10 to figure out how to pay for groceries for a week.
Yeah,
right.
That's much more personal.
No, but it teaches you these lessons. Like there was I remember there was a point in my life where I'd have to wake up. I was working a night job. I didn't have a car, and my work was in another town, so I'd have to get up at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There was no bus the first couple of weeks. So I literally would have to hitchhike into the other town. I'd have to walk probably like 3, 4, 5 miles. Not kilometers.
That's a long way.
Right, and then I'd work. I get a ride home. Yeah. So because someone would be nice enough to give me a ride home. Yeah. Now it'd get a little easier that eventually a bus did start going, but I still would have to get up early because that bus went around 3 times a day, going from one city to the other city. Yeah. And I would catch the last one every day. So the which would be around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I still have to get up at 3.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't have to worry about the hitchhike part of the journey, but I still had to worry about the walking and like. But the thing about me is I've experienced a lot of personal adversity that way, right? My teeth, I've seen a lot of like personally I've seen and I've overcome a lot of adversity.
Yes.
So for me, right, I look at it like I see it as a necessity, and I know like it's there, like I'm aware it's there. I think, and because I am aware it's there, it gives me a very different kind of focus than say someone that's never seen it, right? I can usually tell looking at somebody whether or not they've been through a kind of adversity, because it's usually in how people carry themselves. It's usually there, whether they realize it or not, right? So I can look at somebody, it's like, nope, you haven't been through it yet, and it's not a knock. It's just like you can just tell that certain things have just never been experienced.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, right. So I think like I said, like we're going back to the hunter thing. I think this is what I think. I think that these things do exist, but I also do think like, and because of what I went through personally, you have to again be aware that you need these things. We all do on some level need a little adversity on something. If we don't have it, we don't grow. But also, that's when we do the more destructive tendencies of being so driven, being so focused, like that, having nothing to focus on. Well, now I'm looking at, trying this substance out. I'm looking at getting involved with this very bad choice here or this bad choice here, right? All because I am looking for that impulse to actually feel something in this life, right? And I think that's a very I have a very good understanding of myself, right? So I realize like what I need. I think that's something that a lot of people aren't taught to do. Or again, it's ironically to go through these adversities, right? So then you have no choice but to confront you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the other thing too, I think though, is that I think everybody tries every day to do their best, but that people's capacities change.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, like I said, when I was going through that point, $10 was the best I could do.
Yeah.
Right. It feels humiliating when you're in that moment, but it's not.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Right, but it's not. You reckon, and this is the other hard. I think the other hard thing I learned a long time ago. You're not always in control, and that's a very hard thing to accept.
Yeah.
And once you accept, it's easier once you accept that you're still frustrated, pissed off, annoyed because you're going through this. But you have to go through that. I had to go through that at that point in my life where I had to accept that this was the best I could do.
Right.
And it's not an indictment against me. It was just the place, the time,
yes.
and the obstacles that were in the way at that point in time. Right. That was what I had. I had to make the best of it. And you know what? Some days I struck out. It's just the way it works, right?
But I think another element to this is where you are in the ecosystem, like the social ecosystem of your life, including the other people that you're interacting with. And one of the issues is that some of these things are quite hidden. So, for instance, people in my family with ADHD, there's some real strengths, like we're talking about, creative, intelligent, like people with ADHD tend to be pretty smart. I mean, you wouldn't think of all these creative ideas if you didn't have a certain amount of brain power. But there can be some of the negative things too, like, we were talking about the big crossover with addictions, but also learning disabilities, anxiety, separation and divorce, multiple career choices or changes, right? So it can be a disabling kind of a condition to have, but it's an invisible disability, right? So, for instance, I have a member of my family who is absolutely, really finds it incredibly difficult to manage time. If you were to say to this person, estimate 5 minutes for me, that would be impossible. And so they've been it really affects all sorts of social arrangements and also employment and schooling, right?
Yeah.
And so people think, well, you're just irresponsible, right? Why don't you just set your alarm? Why don't you just get up in the morning? Why don't you, whatever? And it is a kind of an invisible disability that nobody would really recognize. But it still affects, how you get along. And so to have some sort of understanding of how, whether it's addictions or whether it's mental health issues or these invisible disabilities, how they affect people. And we need to spread the word, I think, around talking about and understanding that people are trying their best every day, and sometimes they really achieve, and sometimes not so much.
All in all, I agree with it. We'll have to go my day job. I've seen examples where trying your best isn't necessarily what I see, but I all in all I agree. The trick is I mean, the hardest thing to do is you gotta communicate your vulnerabilities to people. Mm-hmm. And that's
that can be hard to do.
No, it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
It requires an ability to look weak, and that actually takes a lot of strength to do. It's the opposite. It's easy to look strong.
I like that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it takes a lot of strength to do that. Like, asking for help in any way, shape, or form takes an incredible amount of strength.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially when you realize you need it, right? Because it requires you to be vulnerable, right? It requires you to open up and acknowledge that you have issues.
Well, and the flip side of that, or maybe going along with that, is depending on your relationship with somebody else, if you have somebody that you admire or somebody that you don't want to disappoint, then you may push yourself beyond what you're really capable of doing and then crash.
Yeah, well, there's that. Right? There is that. It's just, we are taught. I said this actually on a Facebook post. Jane put up something like, when we were young, a lot of us are taught to put up walls. That we're big, we're strong, that we're invulnerable and invincible. When you're older, I think you realize it's bullshit.
Right.
It's totally bullshit. You have to actually let those walls go. And they start with people at different points in their lives. To be truly healthy is actually to acknowledge your vulnerabilities, to acknowledge your weaknesses.
Like the Beatles song, Help.
Yeah, I need somebody. Yeah, right. And then trust that the people that really, really care will be there for you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest risk of all. It's right. That's actually the biggest risk of all. You're not worried about what a stranger thinks. You give a rat's ass what a stranger thinks.
Right.
You care about. So I go, if I went tomorrow, hey Dad, I think I'm this. I need help. Will he help me? Right? I'm not saying he wouldn't, but I'm just saying that that's the fear in the back of your head. Right? And same to you. If you were vulnerable, would your husband be there? Would your kids be there? Would your friends be there? And because the other thing too, when you go through these hard times, you do learn who's really going to be there for you, because it's not, and it's usually not who you hope would be there for you, right? Yeah. And that is. It's a disappointment. It really is. So I mean, and you have to, but that's part of the process, right? I've come into, like I said earlier, an island into myself right now. I have the option of whether I can immerse myself here, I can immerse myself somewhere else. And right now I'm just choosing to immerse myself somewhere else because that just seems to be where the direction is going. It's a path I can choose. Yeah. So I'm choosing that path. Yeah. But there's a risk. I'm going to completely, in one sense, although not completely, I'm going to isolate myself again and kind of rebuild from the ground up. But for me, it's more along the lines of, I'm ready to try something different and be different for a little while. And maybe it doesn't work and I get my ass kicked. But I've already had my ass kicked, right? So I mean, that's the thing. I've already had it, so I'm not scared of that risk. Yeah. Right. But that's me being very open and honest about what I need in this moment at this time. Yeah. Not everybody. And I've noticed, and again, it's just something I've noticed. We're not taught to do this at a young age. A lot of us aren't taught to be that honest about ourselves, if nothing else. You have to learn that in this life somehow, some way.
And it's a hard lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good life, the universe, and everything chat. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is coming out in 3 weeks, right?
Yes, August 6th.
August 6th. So why don't you? How will we end the interview? The official interview part of this, right? You talk about the book.
All right.
Do you know what your YouTube channel is called?
No, I'm still have to get that.
Okay, so when this interview's about to, I'll air it the first week of August. I will put this interview up. So but give me your YouTube channel.
I will.
Yes. All right.
I have your contact information, so I can do that.
Yes. So give me your YouTube channel then. But for those who are like the book and how people can find you for the time being.
I'll send you all that. Oh, you mean right now?
Right now.
Okay. Well, my website is speculative-fiction.ca. So, yeah, all my links are through there. I've got Facebook, I've got Twitter, I've got Instagram. I will have YouTube. The book itself has its own website, which is addictedtoheaven. It's either .ca or .com. I just go there automatically. So those are some ways that you can get in touch with me.
And what's the book called?
Oh, it's called Bursts of Fire, and it's the first of the Addicted to Heaven series.
All right.
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
And that was my conversation with Susan Forrest. Once again, her audiobook and physical book, Burst of Fire, is available courtesy of Laxam Media. Check them out. They're definitely a really cool group of people to work with and work for. It's always a pleasure to talk to Susan and Lucas. So, it's always a pleasure. So, and I love that they did a video ad concept. That's really, really cool. Anyway, the When Worlds Collide interviews will resume this week. And I got a heck of a guest for you this Thursday. Robert J. Sawyer is going to return to the podcast after almost 300 episode absence. He's back. He started it, finished it, and I promise that conversation is going to be awesome. And then from there, we'll see. Maybe by the time I get to Thursday, I might have some other cool news to announce. We'll see. I'm very open, very optimistic. And, at this point in my life, I'm just kind of going, life will change, man. I'm just going to go ride the wave. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podomatic. Do that there. You can also support my sponsor, Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint is a great place for your independent bookstores, video games, design, films, you name it. If you're indie, these guys can help you. They're great. Check out indieimprint.com. Get their game, Get Your Ass to Mars. It's fantastic. Let's see. What else can you do? You can buy my books, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, Wandering God, courtesy of Merrill Publishing. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pantellaresco. My Twitter and Instagram is at jpantellaresco. Stay inspired, cause your own brand of chaos and mayhem, and I'll see you guys next time with episode 311.
Josh. Shush.